Hello, everybody, gorgeous people. Well, we're here, Sal and I, to have another chat. Sal's got some information that he wants to share with us, something new. So we're excited to hear about that. How are you, Sal? Okay?
I'm very well, thank you, Gordon, and thank you for doing this. You're a busy man. Thank you for doing this podcast with me once more.
You're very welcome.
Yes, I do have something to share, and I'll be honest, it sounds a little bit mad for me. I mean, I've been doing Charlie, been channeling Charlie for the past 5 years, and he and I work together with people, and that's become the norm. But this is a new development, which sounds a little bit too much for me.
Hmm.
So, for the past 5 years, Charlie, he's been telling me about the future, what's going to happen, and he wants me to work with people in terms of, you could say, sort of psychotherapeutic engagement, where it's really is about dealing with emotions and how to release the traumas from our past. And I've been writing lots of articles, and I've been writing about the past to do with what the future is going to be. And he's been telling me about the history of the earth and how there's something called the true humans. And anyway, a little while back, I did a podcast with a friend who, for years, has been connecting with an intelligence which she calls the collective.
Okay.
And as we did the podcast, and she shared something about herself, I shared a lot about me. And after that session, I thought, well, actually, no, before that session, I asked Charlie, well, what exactly is she connecting to? And he then said, well, she's connecting with the true humans. Because what he said, she said, she's connecting with our intelligence. And when I spoke with Charlie, he says, is the true humans. They are the intelligence in this galaxy. There is, so it turns out that for the past 50 odd billion years, there has been a supreme intelligence in this galaxy. It's a race of beings, which I called the true humans without any knowing any more about them, because they gave us 1.5% of their DNA 550 million years ago when we were simian. And but I didn't really think much more about this. I didn't really contemplate them, apart from the fact they were going to come and help us at some future date. But now, as a result of speaking with my friend in the podcast and having us with Charlie, he said, well, actually, they're the intelligence of this galaxy. And they have the ability to communicate telepathically within the whole galaxy. I mean, it's a little bit mind blowing what he shared. So this friend and I, we did the podcast, and then I thought, well, because what she does is she puts her ego out of the way, and she allows this connection with this intelligence to come into her and to literally take over. She's still there to one side with her ego, but not really engaged. And then this intelligence begins to communicate with the room and will give positive messages to people depending where they're at. Something to prop them up and to help them in their journey towards connecting with their hearts. So after I finished the session, next day I was reflecting about, can I do this? I mean, I'm connecting with Charlie. Can I connect with his intelligence? And Charlie says, yes, you can. So I wrote a little article, something about it, and how I went for a walk and as I was walking, I began to connect, and then something strange happened at the end of that, where this intelligence began to look at the world through my eyes. So for about half an hour, I was walking through this beautiful space, really looking very intently at all the trees and everything around me with new eyes, almost like I was on mushrooms, but not quite. And I gave permission for this connection, and we're connected 24/7 now. But I'm not connected in the same way that my friend is, or in the way that you are, because I have asked, and you are connected to the same intelligence. But you're connected in your own way at your own level. So we all do it differently. So my friend was disassociating her ego from herself and allowing the intelligence to take over. I have the facility to disassociate from parts of my body. So my ego is still here, but through muscle testing, I can have independent, so I can ask questions, and in this case, the collective can take over via my subconscious to give me information via my hands in terms of yes and no. So only a small bit of my ego gets out of the way. The rest of me is still here. And so for the past few weeks, I've been conversing and gaining information. I'm not a spiritual junkie. I'm more of a practical person. So for now, I've been asking lots of questions to do about the practicalities. Who are you? Where are you? What's going on? How do you function? What is your culture like? So I've been gaining information in a practical way. And I've just written my latest article on the subject, which we can attach to the podcast at the end.
Sure.
So who are this? What is this intelligence? And it is a group of roughly about 1 billion beings, which when you put it into context, they've been around for the last 55 billion years in this galaxy. They don't know that. This information comes from Charlie. They're only aware, and they only have enough memory database for the last 2 billion. So as far as they're concerned, they have a history up to about 2 billion years ago. And they're only about 1 billion. They have 3 predominant planets in the center of this galaxy. However, they exist in the whole of the galaxy, and they have awareness of the whole of the galaxy because it only takes a group of minimum 5, but it's usually 6. And as long as they're spread out about 1.5 light years away from each other, they have telepathic communication. So what that means is that the galaxy has got a radius of roughly about 45 to 49 light years, something like that. I'm not quite sure how it goes now. And so as long as there's a group of them 1.5 light years apart, they've got instant communication across the whole galaxy. So basically, it's like you and I being aware of our bodies. You know, I can sense my leg, my toes, no problem, right? I can sense most of my physical body at a moment's notice. Well, think of the body as the galaxy. just like our consciousness can't connect, so their consciousness can't connect. And they are it, as far as this galaxy is concerned. A number of them have already come to this solar system because of what's going to come in the future. And so they have quite an intense connection with humanity in a number of different ways. One of them is that they were unaware how far we have devolved from previous times, how brutal we have become, how psychopathic, sociopathic, separated within our own psyche, split up within our minds. And so that they didn't know till connecting with me, connecting through my mind into myself, and getting the information from Charlie about the fact that we have now descended into this place because of emanations from, well, via the galaxy to us, from the universe. So something has, the Indians call it the epoch of Kali Yuga, which is meant to be the worst of the fourth epochs, according to them. According to Charlie, something happened 10,000 years ago, which will last for about 500,000 years, affecting this planet.
Mm-hmm.
Hence why, before 10,000 years ago, we were our beautiful selves. But since then, we've just gone down into hell, literally. And so they were unaware of this. They were unaware of such an emanation existing or even coming our way. And what they've been doing for the last, 15, 20 years that they've been here, they have been doing their best to connect with people like yourself, to begin to raise the vibration of the group without being aware that there are external forces interfering with the process. So there's a lot more, but anyway, so that's, you might like to share a little bit of your viewpoint.
Okay, there's a few things that you said that I find interesting because at the beginning you were saying, well, this is even way out for me, but you've been channeling Charlie for five years, but this is even more way out.
Yes.
And it made me think of what I was channeling the emissaries. They came to me. I thought that was the most way out thing that could possibly happen to me. Then as we proceeded later on, I connected to another group, which they call themselves the Jesus Energy. And so I get messages from them, and it's a very, I'm sure you find the same with the connections. They're a very different energy and very different messages, although generally, the same idea. They're always messages of good things. But for years, I used to I would use finger lift. You use this, don't you? But I would talk to my higher self that way. I would talk to my body wisdom that way. I would talk to my unconscious mind that way. So I was already accustomed to talking to these other parts of me. But then we started getting like, what? And even there's another group which I've connected to, and I haven't done anything with it yet. because the sense I get is for a little bit later, and that's a group called the Soul Healers. They call themselves the Soul Healers, and their role is going to be to help with healing in and of itself, the healing, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, everything. So it was just interesting. There's a group, the two ladies that I've had a chat with. I don't know if you've seen them. They've got a channel on Rumble. They were channeling all kinds of beings, and then suddenly a group came through only a matter of months ago, which ties up interestingly with you, and they call themselves the Andromedan Council. Okay, so they're getting very different messages from them. So
Right.
obviously we're in a period where there's a lot of linking and a lot of new connections being made at the moment, which is interesting.
What interests me about all of this, because I've been aware of so many in the past, is how we filter what comes through us according to our experience, our knowledge, our belief systems. And I do wonder, I mean, what do we know? I do wonder to what extent they're all the same energy, but interpreted according to where we ourselves are at and our belief systems.
That's very much the sense that I
but
get.
I've got no idea.
No, but it's a sense that I get, that we're connecting to something very similar, but as you say, we all have different perceptions, and therefore we link it to what we know, because it makes it safer, doesn't it? And if you link it to what you know,
makes it manageable. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. So, what is there? You were saying that they weren't aware of the state that mankind was in until they've connected with you.
They were not aware of the state mankind was in until they picked off my brain. There's a lot going on in this galaxy. It's a big galaxy. And what they were aware of, because they themselves have the equivalent of my connection with Charlie. They have their own connections. And so they were alerted to the fact that they needed to come here to help mankind because of an impending cataclysm in the future. What they were not aware of is how far we have descended from paradise in the last 10,000 years. I mean, a large percentage of the group that came here, they come from about 14 light years away. And I don't think they've encountered that before. There is a couple of other races in the galaxy who are warlike. But most of the races which have evolved or are in a state of evolution in this galaxy, they're not warlike. They're all connected. They have heart. They have empathy. They have understanding. So this is relatively rare. It happens, but it's relatively rare. And when it's happened in the past, they haven't questioned. They just, they've gone backwards. And that was their assumption, that we had just gone backwards. They hadn't anticipated that actually there is a vibrational emanation coming from somewhere in the universe, which is affecting and will affect this planet for the next 500,000 years.
Okay.
And so their mission is to, initially their mission, when they became aware we needed help, The mission was to come and let's take the whole world away. Let's take everybody away from this earth to other planets. There's plenty of planets. Let's take them away. But once they arrived here and they saw the state of humanity, their hearts sank. And they realized that they were not going to be able to take all of us away. In fact, it will be about half the population when the time comes, because what's left, well, it'll be 2/3 of the population then, is about half of the population now, because the population will continue to go downwards. But nevertheless, it's difficult to leave human beings behind. But they cannot help those who cannot hear them.
Sure.
They cannot bring to them those who will not understand. They're so damaged, they're so confused, there's just no chance for them. Yeah.
No. That's interesting, because the recently I was asking the emissaries about what's coming, what's the next, what are the next few steps, and they said they were talking about the Great Divide, the Great War, which said that we're in now, which is you want to call it good against evil or whatever. It's the war of energy. It's an energetic war. Obviously, there are wars happening, but that's not what they were referring to. And then they said the Great Divide, and they said, so what's the Great Divide? And they were saying, well, there's going to be a split, and they were using because my reference is because I was brought up with the Bible, the sheep and the goats, and they said, truly, those who stay on that side and will align, they said they will align with the dark forces, they'll align with the devil, and for them that will be the right thing to do. And they'll believe themselves to be righteous and just, and they believe us to be bad. And obviously on our side, we believe them to be bad. So there's going to be this tremendous divide, and that's going to happen. And the sense I got when they were showing me, because they showed me visions, it was very much like a 50-50 kind of thing. That's how it's going to be. Those who choose, because it's a time of choosing your side. It's interesting, during the plan/demic, that was the first time I ever heard groups of people getting together and shouting all together, choose your side. I don't know if you remember hearing that. It was a chant that was everywhere. Choose
I didn't
your
hear
side.
that, no. But
Yeah.
it was very clear for me at the time. I mean, good and evil is very subjective.
Of course.
But there were definitely those who were totally fearfully indoctrinated. And there were those who were rebelling against that indoctrination, saying, it doesn't make sense to us. And we now have, they're literally coming out with it. I heard one of them the other day saying, people don't believe us. They don't believe our narrative. I'm paraphrasing. They don't believe our narrative. And we need to be more vocal about disinformation and misinformation, because if we want to maintain our narrative, we have to do this. And this guy was actually saying, talking in America, we have to win the next election. And he didn't say these words, but he almost said it, because the first, was it in America, they've got these sort of various rules that dictate
Constitutions, the amendments,
Yes, the First Amendment guarantees the right of freedom of expression. So we need, and we can't get rid of that. But if we win the next election, we will now have the majority to rescind that. So basically, we're stuck here because they've got this amendment that says they can think what they like and they don't have to listen to what we tell them. They can go elsewhere for information, and that's not acceptable to us.
Yeah.
And they're so desperate. They're literally coming out and they're saying these things in public. That's how desperate they've become. Before they used to do it by subterfuge. Now they're getting to the point in which because they say it within their forums, but they are aware that this is going to become mainstream somehow.
For sure.
And yet they're willing to say these things. So
well, that's interesting that you mentioned it. I think the guy was John Kerry, if I remember rightly, because I heard him.
It is.
And he was saying it's becoming very difficult to govern people now. And so that was a really, it's a terrible thing. It's very difficult to govern people. But the emissaries were saying, because I was talking about that, and they were saying, look, they're at a place now, and they call them the baddies. I use the word the baddies because, well, we know who we're talking about then. And he said they're getting to a place now where they are so desperate, they know that it's shit or bust now. That's where they are. And they said they don't need to hide anymore because it's out. Everybody, half of the world is talking about it and the other half can't see it. So they've got nothing to hide because even if they speak about it, the people who are choosing not to see it won't see it anyway. They'll just think that that's a good thing, And so the emissaries were saying it's going to become more and more blatant. They're going to they were suggesting that the next step along this line is to actually tell people that for them to be good people, they must align with this energy, whether you want to call it Satanism, the devil, the dark side, or if you want to refer to the Book of Ra, to be under the 50%. It's interesting that the percentages come out 50% or less in service to others. So your service to self. And that's where they align to, service to self. It's got to be, it's got to be done for us because it's the right thing and you're wrong. And the people on the other side are the 51% and above, service to others. So in physics terms, it's just a frequency where we choose to align ourselves to. But they're saying that they're going to be very open about it and say, come with us. This is who we align with. Lucifer's always been really the true God. It's the God of light. Come with us. Yeah. And we are going to be the baddies who are going to align to whatever.
1 second. Sorry.
Yeah.
Jenny?
Hello, darling.
I'm doing a podcast with you. Can we speak later?
Okay.
Bye.
Later, no problem.
All right, darling. Bye. Sorry about that.
That's okay. These things happen. Yeah. So that's where I think we're getting to, and it's coming at a pace. They've got nothing to hide now. There is nothing to hide. There's no need. It's all out. Everybody knows about it. So they can speak openly and start formulating their plans of how to stop this.
Well, actually, not quite. Not everybody knows about this. You see, that's the interesting thing, because those who cannot hear it, they are still indoctrinated by the mainstream media. Sure. So they only see and hear what they're shown. You and I, you mentioned John Kerry, you and I hear these things because we look in alternative media. And so we get exposed to what's actually going on, not what they want us to see that's going on. Mm-hmm. And you are correct. There's so many of us who are now questioning the narrative that we've moved away from mainstream media to the alternative forms of news, of information, which is still relatively uncensored.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why that's their focus. They know that unless they can close that down. The issue that they've got is this. Once a person is awake, they can never go back to sleep. It's just the way, once you're in the way your brain works, you've got this thing called the reticular activating system. Once that's alerted, the guardian on the gate is alerted, it will not go to sleep. That's why we can watch things that have got propaganda and hypnosis and all that, and we're protected because our mind's going, with a tennis racket, I'm calling bullshit, I'm calling bullshit, I'm calling bullshit. So they can't get us to go back to sleep. So the only thing that they can do is to keep the majority that they've got hating us and push us into a corner, make us the baddies. That's the only thing. Like in the UK, you post a meme now, and you can be put into prison. That's all they've got left. They can't shut us up, but they have to try and find some way. So it's a very, this is the war. This is the war.
As you were speaking, I was reminded of the Matrix. And towards the end of the Matrix, there's this one guy who has experienced reality, but he says, you know what? I don't care. Yeah. Because it may as well be true. I enjoy my eating and my whining and whatever, and I can have whatever I want. And they're the ones who get seduced by the devil, right?
Yeah.
So they have woken up, but they said, this is a shithole, okay, but I can live differently. And so and we had this during the pandemic. We had guys who were lying through their teeth. They knew the truth. A lot of the politicians knew the truth, and they were still doing it.
Mm-hmm.
They're not stupid. Well, maybe the jury's out on that one, but they are well aware of how the world functions. And they're not the elite. Their strings are being pulled. Nevertheless, they know how the world functions, and they say, you know what? Give me the lucre. Give me the 30 silver pieces.
Absolutely.
I'm happy to. And there's quite a few of those around as well. We need to be aware of that.
Sure, yeah. And they're the beings, because it's all about alignment and frequency. They're the ones who have chosen service for self, service to self. They're happy with that for whatever their motivations. At the end of the day, if you look at the metaphor of the devil and the stories, there are only two things that he can offer: power and riches. Power and riches. That's the only thing he ever offers people. They get it, and they're never happy again, because they're rotten on the inside. But they can fool themselves and think that that's what they want.
Yeah.
Whereas I suppose what I was referring to when I talk about people who are waking up and aligning themselves to good or to light, once you're there, you know that there's nothing for you on the other side. There's nothing there, only sadness and disappointment and darkness, So there's a lot of us over there now.
I'm not so convinced, not yet. Not yet. There's a lot of people who are waking up,
yes,
but I am not convinced there's many people who are awake in the true sense of the word, in the sense of spiritually waking up. There's a lot of people who are waking up in a political sense, who are waking up to the reality of how the world functions, who are beginning to realize that we live in a world of usury, where we're manipulated by money, and not even real money, fiat money, and we're all enslaved to it. And the name of the game is inflation. You go for work, you earn X amount of money, and then you have inflation. Someone's just robbed you of your work. A percentage of your work has been robbed away from you. How is that happening? So people are beginning to wake up to that, to the financial system, and they're beginning to wake up. The politicians rarely tell the truth. Andrew Bridgen is a real politician,
Sure.
and he got kicked out. They made sure he was out.
Mm-hmm.
So the system is corrupt and is controlled, and there's very little we can do about it from that perspective, apart from being aware. And that is the first level of waking up. But there are many more levels beyond that, when we start to wake up to ourselves, where we start to wake up to the fact that actually I don't really like myself that much. Why not? Where am I getting these ideas that I'm not good enough in this or that other way? Why am I hating myself because of my nose? And so we gradually begin to wake up more and more. And we begin to unify our psyche. We begin to reconnect with our emotions. We begin to express the traumas from our past. And this is how we gradually begin to become wholesome, so that we start to connect more and more with our hearts.
Mm.
So waking up has got so many stages, but the first one is where we're at, and it's really, really important, because without this one, we stand very little chance in a short space of time for what's to come.
100%. I agree with everything you said, and the emissaries have said exactly your words to me. They just put it. They always go for very simple, and I think you get into lots of detail and stuff like that.
And complicated.
Yeah, and they go for very simplistic things, because I think that's what I like. So it's my reference. But they say there are 3 steps to waking up: waking up to the world, waking up to self, and then waking up to God. So what they said to me, yes, there's a small percentage that have already done those steps and they're waking up to God, but they said the vast majority of people are waking up to the world at the moment. But they said, hey, that's good news, because it's inevitable then. The process is inevitable. They've got to go through the other steps. And, the self-work is the biggest job, waking up to self.
At this moment.
Yeah, it's a big job. I think and what the emissary said is, waking up to God is inevitable, because when you go into yourself and you become wholesome, to use your word, when you look into yourself, you see God. And therefore, it's a very easy step then to accept, to accept. Well, whatever that means. I'm using the word God, but it's whatever that means.
The maker, whatever.
The maker, the creator, the architect, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's what gives me a lot of hope, Sal, is that I see I'll give you an example. So I ordered some gasolio for the diesel for the heater. And the guys came to deliver it this morning, and he said, what do you think of, what's happening in the world? And I said, well, because we have these chats, and I just launched into, well, this and this and this. And he said, let me tell you a secret. There's a secret cabal that's ruling the world, and it's made up of elites, and they're pulling all the strings all over the world. It's a conspiracy. Yeah. I have so many of those conversations now. Those people who are just waking up going, there's something wrong with the picture. What is it? And that's what happens in the mind. The way that the guardian on the gate says, hang on a minute, this is bullshit. And as soon as that is decided, the mind then opens up to if this is bullshit, what else is bullshit? And that's it. And there's no stopping it. So how long will it take? I don't know. You're probably going to tell us that. How long is it going to take, Sal?
Which bit?
All of it. Because last time we talked, you were talking about sometime, an important moment next year. You were talking about last time we chatted.
Yeah. 5th of January.
Mm-hmm.
So 10,000 years ago, a new vibrational energy inundated this earth and humanity, and we evolved. We went downhill to the darkness fast, because it separated so human beings, we've got a mind, we've got emotions, and we have a physical body. There are three centers. They're independent, but they're meant to be working as one. 10,000 years ago, something happened, and that got split. And as a result of that separation, we evolved. And next January the 5th, for 15 years only, sounds like a sale, for 15 years only, there will be an opportunity because that energy, which has been maintaining, suppressing, and keeping us split within our psyches, will lift. That means that the integration between the physical, the emotional, and the mind will become a lot easier, which means that people will start to integrate a lot faster. Certainly those who are ready will now find, oh, that makes sense, and they will start to see. So that will begin from next January the 5th, and it will last for 15 years. And then, boop, the light will go. Hopefully by then, there will be more than enough of us who have now literally woken up to our hearts, and that feeling energy of compassion and empathy will help others to wake up much quicker. Those who for whatever reason haven't managed it in those 15 years, they're getting close, but they're not there. The power of feeling is so intense and powerful, it can reach the whole world. You cannot evade it. You cannot but be influenced by it. So the idea, the hope, is that it will be sufficient for those stragglers who are following to also come up. I'd like to share at this moment in time that I said the human being has got three centers, and most people are under the influence of the mind center. And just like as below, so above, so we ourselves are generating or reflecting, take your pick, the state of the world. So when you mention there's a small cabal, at the moment, most people, they're at the mercy of their minds. What I mean by the mind, I mean the minds are full of rules and regulations, belief systems that dictate how we should be. And the mind is totally sociopathic. It has no emotional connection to others. And what the mind does is it suppresses our emotions because the sheer intensity of certain emotions threaten to overwhelm the system. So our minds shut that off, and that emotion then goes into our mouth, into our muscles, and then we have physical tensions and pains and aches, etc. The same is happening in the world. Yes, there is a cabal, there is a small minority of elites, and they function purely at the mind level. Rules and regulations. You look at the UK, Spain, any country, pretty much, I reckon. And every year there's a whole hundreds of politicians that gather to rule over us by making new rules and regulations to constrict our behavior. Rules and regulations which don't care about your feelings. They don't care as to, well, why did you do that? Maybe, there was some emotional reason why I behaved in this way. No, there's a rule here. You have to follow the rule. If you don't follow the rule, you get punished. That's how our minds work. They punish the body when we don't follow the rules which have been imposed on us from outside and which we internally have generated to be part of society.
Mm.
We saw that during the pandemic, when people, because of their fear, their mind was saying, you have to follow the rules, you've got to take and if you don't, we're all going to die. Because unless one is protected, unless everybody's protected, nobody's protected. Yeah, but aren't you having that? Yeah, but that doesn't count. Everybody's got to have it. I'm going silly at a tangent. The point is that their mind, because of fear, because this is how this works. It works by manipulating fear. That is how the cabal works, by their puppets, the politicians, the governments. It all works by a fear. It's always, always fear. And it happens within us, and it's reflected outside of us. You want to change the world? Change yourself.
I think a number of people have said that, have they not?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know that you use that expression, as above, so below. And I listened to a lady and she said, that there's another part to that. The part that people don't mention is as above, so below, as within, so without, which covers exactly what you're saying. We create, if we are all from source and source is creation, then we're all creators and we all have that potential. And I think we are probably using the tiniest bit of our potential at the moment because of this, because, there's only, I believe there are only two ends to each of the balance, love or fear. When you're in love, you are the most powerful creator ever. And when you're in fear, you're useless. And that's where they have to keep us. They have to keep us in that place so that we're useless, because if we're in this side, holy moly. So no wonder they're worried about people moving along that waking process, because once you get to waking up to God, whatever that is, then you're untouchable. This doesn't matter anymore.
Oh, I don't know about that, but I'll hedge my bets on that one. But talking about God, I was raised a Catholic. You believe in God. You believe in the God they tell you about.
Sure.
And then I became an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
I remember once going into, in London, Speaker's Corner, there was this priest talking about God, and he was like, but God is in everything. God is in this, that. And I listened to him, and another nutter, okay, moving on. And then I wanted to, later on, as I went into spiritual development things, I wanted to find God. And I began to read the Bible, and I wanted to go to church. But they were all half measures. They weren't real, because I was still in my head. You see, and that's the thing about the cabal. They talk about God. The cabal talks about God, but it's the devil. It's not about God, and it's the God of physicality. Is not a spiritual God in the true sense of the word. It's the God of money and power. And so there's a lot of people out there who are all very intellectual. And so they're trying to reason their way to God. You can't reason your way to God. It's not possible. Because God is not something that the mind can comprehend. All it can do is find rules and regulations to explain things. Whereas God is not even an emotion. You see, some people move from there and then they have God as an emotion. You get this in Spain, in the south of Spain, they've got this thing, El Rafio. And my uncle, who's now dead, he loved the Rocio. He went there for 20 years with his caravan. And once I put some lyrics from the Rocio, you know, really nice, very emotive. And he just picked me up from the airport. I just arrived in Spain. I said, oh, look, I bought myself one of these early things to listen to music to at the very beginning. And we started listening to it, and he was listening to that. And tears came to his eyes because now he was emotionally connected to the Virgin and that effusive throng of people who are now with the music and the fervor, because emotions are really powerful, and a group of people emotionally connected is like poof. You know, it doesn't go that far compared to feelings, but it's strong enough in itself. And so he was in there, but that isn't God. That is still not quite there. To get to God, we have to get to our hearts. We have to be in our feelings. And this is why I make such a separation between emotions, which is in the lower abdomen, which is part of the hormonal system, and feelings, which are from the heart. Their inclusivity, they're together, they're the empathy, they're being able to put ourselves in someone else's shoes. That interconnection with not just humanity, but with the animal, the vegetable world. There's a connection that we can have. And even that doesn't take us to God, because God is beyond our conception, is beyond anything we can conceive us, because we're just so small in the scheme of things.
Sure.
But it gives us a taste. And by the feelings, we'll come as close as to whatever God is. Because when we get into feelings, we are connected beyond ourselves. Because if God means anything, is the connection of creation. Is the whole of creation connected as one. That is a name. I don't know that we're there, but that is a name. But we can experience that in a very tiny way when we are in feelings, because we can connect, and we connect with the environment around us.
Yeah, I agree. I think in our job, you know, let's be clear. We're in a 3D world. Shit happens here. It isn't possible to live that constant connection, because that's not what I don't think that's our role here. But the more often we can make that connection, the more often we can have a glimpse. It's just like a glimpse of, this is what it's about, you know, and that's what keeps me going. All those minute glimpses, you know. It's not, you know, the idea of, you know, putting yourself in a monastery and sitting meditating for your entire life. You know, that's not
life.
It's not what we came here to do. Yeah. But every now and again, to have that glimpse, just to have that, it's almost, for me, it's like a reminder. You remember, like, that's what it's about, you know.
Yeah.
Listen, we've been talking for an hour, but I've got one question I want to. Yeah, been fascinating. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I just wanted to ask you one thing. I don't know whether you have that information or not.
Go for it.
You were saying that 10,000 years ago something happened, and you keep using this expression, something happened. Do you know what that something was?
There was a change in the cosmic wind. There was a new vibration that affected our corner, and it's affected humanity on this planet. It's not something that is common. It's not something that happens all over the galaxy. Like I said, most of human life, most beings in this galaxy have never experienced such a thing. So, you know, the ones you call the emissaries, I call the collective, they exist in love. They are telepathically connected with each other, all of it. The whole 1 billion beings are one. That's close to God.
Mm.
Yeah. And they are love, and they are love incarnate. And we're starting to get glimpses of that. My friend allows that energy to flow through her to the group so that she can share. And that's their love being expressed through her. There is love in this world, but it is rare. Real love is rare. And yes, we get a little bit when we can, we're grateful for what we get. But it will change. It will change us from next year. And I'm hoping that this will overtake humanity. Not all, okay, but larger and larger tranche of it. And more people will come from their hearts in their relationships rather than from their heads. Because it's coming from here that's been doing us in for the last 10,000 years. Because from here, there is no emotional connection. It's just brutality, and we can see it. It's there. It's out there. We can see it right now without going into it. It's there.
For sure, yeah. So, yeah, things to look forward to. I feel very positive about going forward. And does that mean that I think it's going to be plain sailing? No, I think we're going to have a lot of challenges, but I think we're more than capable of managing them. And the more that we unite,
look at the way you work with people, okay? Because you and I do something very similar, although I don't do it in hypnotherapy way. And your aim is to connect people with those suppressed emotions so that they can let go of the burden, free themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't always manage it. Or should I say, you do your best, but they don't always manage it.
Sure.
What stops them?
Fear, the mind, not wanting to go
It's
there.
the mind. It's the mind. It's too strong. And so even as from next year, even though more and more people will wake up, this mind exists in the world as a physical entity, this cabal, which are totally ruthlessly mental.
Both meanings there, yeah.
They control the world via rules and regulations. And they're not going to give up their power. Why would they? Because they think they're in the right. They actually believe themselves to be in the right.
Sure.
Yeah, they believe that is the way to be in control of the world. Because the mind can only see the mind. The mind doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about your emotions. It doesn't care about your pain. So that's the fight. We do have a fight, and it's both an internal and an external fight.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. And really the message that, just to end, the message that the emissaries give over and over again is, now is the time to start working on yourself. That now is the time to go inward, not outward. We've done, from the people I talk to, have done all of the rabbit holes, they've done all of the conspiracies, then all of that. What's next? Within. We've got to go within. And that's the message that they keep repeating. Obviously, it's very important, the same as your connections. To get to the next steps, this is what we've got to sort out. Yeah. So
can I just add a little something for me, a little that as from next year, I will be starting small groups where I will be working with individuals within small groups who will support each other to really, if you've reached that point, you're walking up, so you think, and you're really to start working on the various emotional inconsistencies within you, the various belief systems that you're struggling with. If you have no happiness inside you, then the same as Gordon, I will be offering to work with small groups to release whatever's holding them back, to find their way to the heart, to find your way to your heart. Because I can say, makes it sound so easy, find your way to the heart. And it is easy, and yet it's not. Because we have so many beliefs that get in the way. We're not even aware of them. We have so many suppressed emotions that are manipulating how we relate to other people in the world. We're not aware of them. A lot of us, we have suppressed our anger. The world does not want us to experience anger. They want us to experience rage. That's rather good. You're very controlled, very controllable in rage. But anger is the power to say no.
Sure. Yeah. Righteous anger. We could do with a big dollop of that. Big dollop of that in this world. Well, thank you. In the video information, I'll put your contact if anybody wants to contact Sal and to ask him, about the course or to book themselves on. Beautiful. Sal, it's been probably this has been the most interesting conversation we've had to date. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you very much for sharing your time.
I hope the people who frequent your website, your podcast will also think so, because so far we've had a few, and I've always thought, there's not many people interested in what I have to share. That's sad. I accept it. It's where we are at the moment. But it would do my heart good to hear from more of you how you are affected by what we share, what it does for you. In a positive or negative way. We would love to hear from you.
Sure.
There's 200 every time, you have 400 people listening to you. When you and I do a podcast, you get anywhere 100 to 100 if we're lucky. We would love to hear your comments.
Sure.
Questions, anything. Both Gordon and I would be more than happy to answer your questions.
Lovely. Yeah. So whatever you want to put in the comments, and that'll give us a bit of feedback so that we know that these are kind of worthwhile doing. Okay, Sal, well, you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
You too.
And we'll speak again. Yeah, let's see what happens beginning of next year. How exciting. Okay.
Thank you.
Take care, Sal.